Okay, today we're looking at state verbs and performatives. I want to try and explain some of the more advanced and complex issues concerning whether we use simple or continuous, basically. And so I want to start with performatives. Now, performatives are words where when you say them, I regret, I promise, you actually do the action which you're saying. So when you say I regret doing that, you are regretting it as you say it. Okay, now if we do that, we usually use present simple. Yeah, I regret doing that. We don't say I'm regretting doing that. When the sentence is the very regret itself, that's when you need to keep it in present simple. And this is pretty much the same for all reporting verbs, because when we report something, when you say I suggest, you make a suggestion with that very sentence. And so you say I suggest going to the cinema. You don't say I am suggesting. And the same with promise and with many other reporting verbs. I think almost all of them. I can't think of any exceptions at the moment. Warn, admit, advise, deny. So please check out my videos on reporting verbs to see which ones this applies to. But we just use simple, even though we can use this verb in continuous when it's not the sentence which is actually performing the action. So here the promise is made when you say this, and the regret, it's what you're doing when you say this. But look at the second example. He didn't feel bad at first, but now he's regretting it. We can use it in continuous here, and it's quite natural to. We can also put it in simple, but it sounds good here in continuous. It sounds fine. Here, it would sound very strange to put it in continuous when you are performing the action. And you might think that's odd, because if you're in the middle of the action, the idea is that you should use continuous, right? Well, not with performatives, not with reporting verbs. We just use simple. I promise to do my homework. But I could say, you've been promising this for some time, but without result. And that sounds very natural. And so we're using it in a continuous, a perfect continuous. But still, nonetheless, it's clearly not a state verb. I tell you in other lessons that state verbs must not be used in continuous. And that's very true. But these performatives are not state verbs, even though when you are performing the action, I regret doing this, I promise to do my homework, you generally just use it in present simple. Yeah, if you say, I warn you not to come back too late, you're giving them the warning in that very message when you say that sentence, so you just say, I warn. Okay, I hope that's clear for performatives. Please understand them as something different from state verbs, because they're not state verbs. You can use them in simple or continuous. Now, there are a lot of verbs which are both state verbs and dynamic verbs, and they describe actions, and the meaning of them changes slightly when they're either acting like a state verb or when they're acting like an action verb, like a dynamic verb. So, for example, look at is a very dynamic verb, but it's very different from look, which describes a state. Let me give you two examples. If I look at someone, maybe someone on the street, and I say, he looks French. Yeah? Maybe I decide that he's got a particularly French-looking face, or a way of dressing, or a way of behaving, and I would say, he looks French. I would never say, he is looking French. That is very wrong. You can't say, he is looking French. You can't put it in continuous, because this look is a state verb when you're describing the state of someone, the state of how someone looks. So we cannot say, he is looking French. We can say, he looks French. However, when you're using look at, this is a very dynamic verb. And so I can say, and it's perfectly correct, I'm not looking at the camera. It's true, isn't it? I'm not looking at the camera. I am looking at the whiteboard because I'm writing. So I am not looking at the camera. Now I'm looking at the camera. So I can use this verb very dynamically. I can certainly use it in continuous. In fact, you must. But this one, which looks very similar to this one, is actually a different verb. It's a state verb. Now, unfortunately, it's not so simple as this, because look at a verb like feel, and I can use it in a way where I describe a state, and in this, really, it's got two meanings, feel, yeah? It's got one meaning which means when you say, I feel that, and basically you mean, I think, I consider, it seems to me, yeah? If you mean feel like think, I feel that this is the wrong answer. You would never say, I am feeling that this is the wrong answer. So if you're just stating your opinion about something, I feel that, when you mean opinion, it will always be a state that you're describing. It will be a state and not an action. So I feel that, or she feels that, or the boss feels that. It will always be simple because you're just talking about an opinion, really. Let's put opinion. Yeah, it's when you mean I think that, when it's your opinion. Okay? If you're talking about how you feel, how maybe you feel sick, maybe you feel well, then it can be dynamic. Yeah, you can say I'm feeling terrible at the moment, or I'm feeling nervous. Now, it's not, again, it's a little bit more complex because this sense of feel, the second sense of feel, which means how you're actually physically feeling, it can be used as a dynamic verb, and I think we often do. However, you can just say I feel nervous, and so I've got it up here in my simple or continuous. Now, the state verb is not simple or continuous, it's only simple. But the dynamic form of feel, when you're talking about your feelings, how your body feels, I'm feeling nervous, I'm feeling sick, I'm feeling great, well, that one can be simple or continuous. And by the way, it's actually the same for this look. But not when we do it with French. Not when we do it with French. But if we want to say she looks good, you can also say she's looking good. And that's why I've put it up here. It just doesn't work with French though, because that's a state, the state of being French. But it's very changeable mood and how someone looks. And so you can say she looks great or she's looking great. She looks nervous or she's looking nervous. Both are possible, the simple or the continuous, and the same for feel. Both are possible, which is why in other videos I've said it's active. It's a state verb and it's very dynamic. And this is why you can say, you know, he's been feeling down recently, or he has felt down recently. Very similar to live and work. Okay, let's finish off with think and think about. However, I will be doing a lot more videos on these state verbs because I happen to think that they're very confusing. They confuse me, certainly, as a teacher. So let's look at think and think about. Think, when it's like this, your opinion, I think that, it's a state. Yeah, when you say, I think that he is French, it's got to be simple. You can't say, I am thinking that he is French. You can't say he is looking French. And you can't say, I am feeling that he is French. All of that is very, very wrong. You've got to say, I think that he is French. You've got to use simple, because this is a state, what you think. But if we're talking about something that you are thinking about, something, very often a future plan, I'm thinking about going on holiday next week, or doesn't have to be a future plan though, I am thinking about the shape and size of the universe. This is an action, it's a dynamic verb, so this one you certainly can say, I'm thinking about the weather. So I hope that's clear that even a verb like think, it's both stative, it's a state verb and it's a dynamic verb, and in this one we can only use it in simple, but here we can use it in simple or here we can use it in continuous or simple if we need to. It's dynamic. So this is a very confusing topic. If you have any questions about any of this, please write them under the lesson, and I will continue this series of lessons with some more verbs which describe states and actions. I think in my very first video about present simple and present continuous, click on the link above to go to this video, but I talk about some other verbs, have, see, and a few others, I can't remember which ones, but about their different meanings as state verbs and dynamic verbs. So I've got a bit of material already on this, but please check out some of my, please subscribe and watch the next video to find some more because there are many, many more verbs which describe states and actions. Okay, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all soon.